Major casting news out of Marvel last week. The Fantastic Four's Galactus will be played by none other than the Witch's Ralph Ineson. Additionally, John Malkovich and Paul Walter Hauser will be joining the cast in undisclosed roles. Stick around to find out who these gentlemen might be playing in the upcoming film. I'm Brennan for the New Wave Nerds. Like and subscribe below for more nerd content and commentary. Now let's read the news. From the Hollywood Reporter exclusive, Fantastic Four casts Ralph Ineson as Galactus. The actor, known for genre work such as The Witch and Game of Thrones, is in talks to play a very big bad for Marvel Studios. The Fantastic Four meet your villain. Ralph Ineson, the British actor whose three-decade career ranges from the Harry Potter movies to recent horror prequel The Omen, has landed the plum part of Galactus, the antagonist in Marvel Studios' Fantastic Four. So right off the bat here, I want to say that this casting, while it wasn't my first choice, and admittedly was not even on my radar, is certainly a casting that I do approve of. Ralph Ineson, I think, makes perfect sense for the role of Galactus. He cuts such a striking and intimidating figure. He has this rumbling, deep basso voice that strikes fear in the heart of man. He certainly embodies the sort of vibe that I want from this massive intergalactic, interdimensional big bad who is going to come and devour the world on which we live. This is the kind of guy who I think I want to have in that role. So as far as I'm concerned, it is the perfect choice. And again, while this is somebody who is well known in the nerd community, in the nerd niche, he's certainly got around. This is not somebody who you would consider an A-list actor. So this is in keeping more or less with my general rule for casting for Marvel, in that I don't think you want to go for the massive A-tier, A-level stars. I think you want to go for somebody who is a little lesser known, though still recognizable perhaps, but not somebody who is this massive industry level talent, but somebody who still has a certain reach, but does not have the massive payoff in the community, if you will. I personally want it to be somebody who it doesn't feel like you're reaching for to try and bring in a new audience, right? I want the casting to feel like it is right for the part. I want the casting of the actor to feel like it meshes with the character, not that you cast this person because you think that they have big name value and are therefore going to reel in a bunch of more people and hopefully boost your box office, right? That's sort of been my complaint with the casting of Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, right? I've said before that I don't necessarily dislike Pedro Pascal. In fact, I really, really do heavily enjoy a lot of his work. I think he's a tremendous actor. I just don't know if he's right for Reed Richards. And to me, it felt like his casting was just a reach to try and go for that the top actor of this current time, right? The A-level star who is going to hopefully boost your box office numbers. To me, it felt like the choice to go for Pedro Pascal wasn't because they were casting Reed Richards. It felt more to me like, who is the biggest name, who's big right now that we can use to generate press and marketing. And I don't get that same sense from Ralph Ineson. Like I said, he is certainly well known in the nerd community, but is not quite as mainstream as a Pedro Pascal, obviously. Maybe he's on the same tier as some of the other names. I would say maybe he's on the same. He's slightly more famous than Eben Moss-Backrack, the actor who is playing the Thing, at least in my estimation. So this is based off of nothing but my own personal opinion. But I think if you held up two pictures of Backrack and Ineson and asked people to identify them, I think there's a higher likelihood that people would identify Ineson than Eben, which is not a knock on Eben. I like him. I liked him in Punisher. But I do want to go a little bit over some of what else has been in Ralph Ineson's career. Like I said, he is a very at least a moderately well-known figure in the nerd community. So I do want to quickly go through some aspects of his filmography. Obviously, we mentioned in the article there, most recently, he was in The First Omen. Before that, he played a key role in Gareth Edwards' The Creator, one that I was very excited for, but was not as well received as I would like. Notably, and this is one that I was unaware of at the time, and I just noticed it in my recent replay. I've been going through Diablo 4 with my brother. We've been doing a playthrough, and I thought his voice sounded familiar, but Ralph Ineson did the acting for Lorath, one of the main characters, the member of the Herodrim, whom you first meet up with and eventually, work through the rest of the story. I won't give away any of the beats from his arc, but I thought the story of Lorath Nar throughout Diablo 3 into Diablo 4 is absolutely amazing, and I really loved it. And the performance of Ralph Ineson is just great. You really like like I said, the deep rumbling basso, the grating voice. It meshes perfectly with that character. If you haven't gone through and played Diablo 4, I cannot recommend it enough. I wanted to point out that Ralph Ineson played probably you'd consider him a secondary character. I think he gets a little too much screen time to be considered tertiary, but he plays Commander Ballantine in the sequel series Willow, available now on Disney+. Also available is our review of this series. Definitely was a lot of fun to go through and talk about that. That's one of our legacy episodes, so that is available exclusively on the RSS podcast feed. That is one of our... I don't think that was actually categorized as a My Father Before Me, just the Willow review, but worth a listen. He also played a role in 2022's The Northman, which I believe did very well at the Oscars. He played the titular Green Knight opposite Dev Patel's Sir Gawain. Let's see, I think it's actually... Or no, I think because it ended in 2019, didn't it? But he played Dagmar Cleftjaw in Game of Thrones. That is one of the Ironborn. Spoiler alert, but as my father reminded me the other day, the guy he plays is one of Theo... Is his name Theo? Yeah, Theon. Theon Greyjoy's Ironborn, who eventually betrays him, I suppose. Let's see, Chernobyl, a couple episodes of that. I really, really want to watch this one. It's been on my list for so long, I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Obviously, 9.3 stars. I know it did very well. He's got a bit part in The Last Jedi. That's the thing about Ralph Ineson, is that he's got a bit part in like every single nerd property. I mean, even further down here, he was a Ravager pilot in Game of Thrones. Ralph Ineson, notably himself, here's the Game of Thrones listing. I guess it goes by when the series starts, but Dagmar Cleftjaw. What was I saying? Ralph Ineson, huge nerd. I believe he even posted himself. He was so excited about playing Galactus. He played Amicus Caro in the Harry Potters. He's one of the B-level Death Eaters seen in the background. I don't know off the top of my head if he has any speaking parts. But yeah, so a lot of background in some of the nerd properties. So Ralph Ineson, like I said, while you may not be familiar with the name, almost certainly the face and the voice are familiar to you. And so a very intimidating man. Like I said, one that I am incredibly happy for. Even though, like I said, I hadn't picked it myself, was not even on my radar. Honestly, I'd forgotten that this guy was around, right? Like I said, not well known. I recognized him. I recognized him instantly, but not one that somebody typically thinks of, right? But so I'm willing to admit here that this is probably the first casting in this film that that I'm explicitly excited for, right? Like, obviously the main casting of the titular Fantastic Four, Pedro Pascal, a great addition, but like I said, I wasn't particularly excited for that. And they've been pretty tight-lipped about most of the other additions for the cast. But this one definitely got me excited here. Why don't we return to the article to read a little bit more about the background of the film. So the high-profile, big-budget outing, the Fantastic Four's first under the Marvel Cinematic Universe umbrella, has been casting up in recent weeks ahead of a planned midsummer shoot in England. On the call sheet are, misspelling here, Pedro Pascal as scientist Reed Richards or Mr. Fantastic, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm's Invisible Woman, Joseph Quinn as her hot-heated brother Johnny Storm or the Human Torch, and Eben Moss-Backrack as Richards' friend with body issues, Ben Grimm's The Thing. Also cast are Julia Garner as the female Silver Surfer, and Paul Walter Hauser and John Malkovich in undisclosed roles. So obviously I mentioned at the outset John Malkovich and Paul Walter Hauser. First off here, I want to discuss a little bit of John Malkovich, the beautiful man himself. John Malkovich, a very illustrious career, obviously starring in the film Being John Malkovich. It's such a notable individual here. I mean, John Malkovich, his acting credits are just insane. I mean, he's just done so much. His career would probably be described as illustrious. I think that's probably accurate. I've got his IMDb page here. There we go. Obviously, Being John Malkovich, where he portrays a fictionalized version of himself in The Line of Fire, Dangerous Liaisons. He has a bit part in the last episode of Ripley, a show that I'm actually currently watching. Will likely be the subject of this week's Weekly Fixation. Stick around for that this Friday. I mean, obviously he's done plenty of things. John Malkovich, this is one of those names that almost everybody is just familiar with the name, even if they can't name plenty of films that he's been in off the top of his head, like myself. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I didn't realize that he was in that. That's pretty fun. Oh, he was in a TV production of Les Mis. He played Javert. Interesting choice. Mulholland Falls. This is weird. Oh, here we go. 92's Of Mice and Men. Beautiful, beautiful story. Or terrible story, I guess, depending on who you are. I thought it was great. I'm a big fan of it. So John Malkovich, obviously I don't have much to say off of John Malkovich himself. I think he's a tremendous actor, and so adding him to the cast list adds a certain level of gravitas there. We can assume there's going to be a certain level, a certain level of performance lended to the film, albeit most likely in a relatively bit part. The question remains, though, who will John Malkovich be playing here? And like I said, it is undisclosed. There are quite a few things I've been reading. As we've mentioned here on the show before, I don't typically do fan castings. I'm not very good at them. I'm not very good at visualizing that, and so I have scoured the internet for what I think are some potentials as to who John Malkovich will be playing. We're going to start off here with what I personally think is most likely and move forward into further on into absurdity, let's say. So what I think is the most likely casting for John Malkovich is none other than Nathaniel Richards. That's right, not the Nathaniel Richards who is the descendant of Reed Richards, who would become Kang the Conqueror, whose fate is currently unknown in the MCU. Rather, this Nathaniel Richards is the father of Mr. Fantastic. I believe in the comic books, Nathaniel Richards is himself an acclaimed scientist who actually leaves Reed Richards I believe, in his teenage years to go about his individual journey, wherein I believe Nathaniel Richards actually becomes an interdimensional traveler. somewhat of both an ally and a foe towards the Fantastic Four over the years, a semi-recurrent character who sparingly reappears in Reed Richards' life. So the reason that I think this is most likely is just in the fact that I think it would be really fun. It would be a really cool role for John Malkovich, personally. I think it would be incredibly fun to see him do this, time jumping, gallivanting father to Reed Richards. So the reason that I think this is the most likely casting, though, isn't necessarily due to the time travel aspect, though I do believe that will play a role. I think if this is going to be the casting for John Malkovich, I think he's going to show up throughout the early first act of the film, mostly through flashbacks, presumably providing some background to Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards and to the formation of the Future Foundation, which I believe is going to be playing a part in this film. So I think we'll presumably see him mostly through flashbacks, but if John Malkovich is playing Nathaniel Richards, I think it's highly likely that in the post-credit scene, we would see him in his, future time-jumping self. We would see him reappear to inform Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards and the rest of the Fantastic Four that they are involved in this multiverse, right? Because presumably this film is going to be set in the 60s. Something which is going to play a part in one of my later potentialities for John Malkovich. But I think that would be fun to see. It would be interesting to see this gallivanting time strutter, if you will, and then to see him presumably come back to introduce this Fantastic Four into the multiverse, or perhaps to lead into Kang Dynasty. Actually, that would be really interesting. That would be a really interesting way to do this, right? You have John Malkovich play Nathaniel Richards. We see him mostly through flashbacks, and then in a post-credit scene, he comes through some, TVA-style gateway or whatever to inform the Fantastic Four that a variant of your son is attempting to take over the galaxy or take over the multiverse or however they do this storyline. I'm sure they're gonna alter it in some way to make it fit the cinematic screen, if you will. But I think that would be really interesting, and it's done in a way that I think obviously makes sense to bring in this multiverse, to bring in this Fantastic Four from a different multiverse into Earth. Is 616 Earth proper in the MCU? I know that's what it is in the comics, but I feel like that's the number they give it in Multiverse of Madness, but I can't remember. I think they actually give it a different number in the Spider-Verse films, don't they? I think that's what it is. I'm not sure. I haven't read. I haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse yet. I'm at the point now where I think I might just wait until the next one comes out, but that's not important. I think that's a fun way to do it and to mold these two properties in a way that makes sense, not just from the movie perspective, but in a way that harkens back to the comic origins, in a way that I think Marvel needs to do more and more these days. They need to return to the source material just as much, if not more, than they did in the past, in my personal opinion. So that's one potential casting for John Malkovich. The second one, which I think is also highly likely, based off of perhaps nothing other than just the fact that I think he kind of looks like it, would be the Puppet Master. Right, this is another Fantastic Four villain who has recurred throughout the years multiple times. I think the Puppet Master makes his debut in issue number 8 of the Fantastic Four, so he's there from the early years. So this is another one that I think would be incredibly fun. I'm not very familiar with the villain, so I have no stake as far as that goes. Knowing who John Malkovich is, and just seeing him as a person, I think he would have a lot of fun playing this character. It would allow him to be very over the top. Not to mention the fact that, as I said, he actually already kind of looks like the guy. Here's another image of the Puppet Master. You can't tell me that doesn't look like John Malkovich right now. There's no way. How does that not look exactly like him? Like I said, I don't know anything really at all about the character itself, so I don't have any fun parallels or potential introductions for this character, like I do Nathaniel Richards, or fun ways to tie into everything else. I don't particularly care about this fan casting. This is the one that I saw that I personally would not be very interested in seeing. This is just one that I've seen said a lot on the internet, and I don't think this character makes sense if you bring it in just so that you can have John Malkovich be in the Fantastic Four movie, right? But the other recommendations, I think, make sense in more of a, or at least the first recommendation makes sense more in a way of, how do you have this polemic actor be in this film in a way that makes sense to the broader continuity? That's something that's there for Nathaniel Richards that isn't necessarily for the Puppet Master, or for my final not necessarily recommendation, my final potentiality. This is the one that I think maybe I would like to see the most, not for any reason. Like, I don't like the character. I've never read anything, any story, any comics with the character. I just read some random Reddit post and then found the Marvel wiki article and read like the first paragraph, and I thought, this sounds amazing and this is exactly what I need right now. And that fan casting is none other than Ivan Kragov, also known as the Red Ghost. So this is one, again, I think just makes sense. I think it makes sense insofar as I think John Malkovich would just have a very fun time playing this character. It's absolutely, he's just a preposterous, or at least the concept is just preposterous. So Ivan Kragov, the Red Ghost, this character's origin is that he is like a Russian cosmonaut who it's set during the Cold War, and this Russian cosmonaut attempts to replicate the experiment wherein the Fantastic Four got their powers, right? So basically, the short and skinny of it is that Ivan Kragov conducts an experiment wherein he and 3 apes get blasted with some cosmic rays. And the apes and himself, or maybe not himself, I'm actually not 100% sure on that, but the apes receive, powers from the cosmic rays similar to the Fantastic Four. Let me see if I can actually find the apes themselves here. Here. Building a ceramic ship that would expose the crew to an even more potent surge of cosmic rays, Ivan prepared a flight to the moon with these 3 trained apes: Piotr the orangutan, Miklo the gorilla, and Igor the baboon. Passing through a cosmic ray... Okay, well, I don't necessarily care about that. Pyotr developed control over magnetism, so the orangutan can control magnetism. The gorilla Miklo has enhanced strength, makes sense for a gorilla, and Igor the baboon unlocks shape-shifting abilities. Ivan himself gained the ability to become intangible at will and decided to name himself the Red Ghost. That's right. That's where he gets the name Red Ghost from. I had forgotten that. But this, like I said, doesn't necessarily make sense. It's kind of a preposterous storyline. It's, a Russian scientist tries to make his own experiment and somehow gets these 3 super-powered apes. What is happening? But like I said, there's apes there, so obviously I am here for it. The reason, though, that I think this would be a fun villain it is actually a little bit deeper than just the fact that I think it's a preposterous story and John Malkovich would just go hog wild with it. I think it would be cool to see this villain just because it further hits home the fact that this is just supposed to be set in the 60s, right? It sort of further, hits at the Cold War aspect. Obviously, with the promotional material of the time cover of Nixon in the Oval Office, I mean, I think it just makes a certain level of sense in so far as you can really hit home that this Fantastic Four is set in a different time frame, a different universe than our MCU proper. I think it just makes sense from a meta aspect. Because then I think you can go super over the top with it and then, bring things back to a more grounded nature when they move to our MCU. Or just you can just let John Malkovich be completely over the top with it because if he's presumably, a bad guy, an antagonist fighting the Fantastic Four, it's not like he's the main villain anyway, right? Like, we've got Galactus, so we don't need to have this super serious villain if we're going to have a super serious, massive man who's going to try and eat the planet, right? I think it just, tonally, I think it makes a certain level of sense. Let me know down below who you think John Malkovich will be playing in the upcoming film. We do have one other casting which we noted in the Ralph Ineson article, Paul Walter Hauser. This is an actor who I am not very familiar with, but who has certainly been making news lately, certainly been making lots of headlines. His career has absolutely taken off in the past year or so. He had a role in 2023's Blackbird, for which he received an Emmy, I believe, for Best Supporting Actor. He plays a serial killer, I believe, in that. I haven't seen it. Like I said, I didn't know that it existed, and I didn't know Paul Walter Hauser was alive. Like, I didn't know that he was a person, so I was unfamiliar with it. But based off of what I've heard, I think absolutely I plan on visiting that series before the Fantastic Four comes out. Paul Walter Hauser, apart from the announcement of being casted in Fantastic Four, was also recently in the news for his casting as Chris Farley. That's right, he will be playing one of the greatest comedians ever to live in a biopic produced by Josh Gad. He's also going to be starring in the Naked Gun remake. And what's more, all of these announcements have been made in this month. I believe in the past two weeks. Maybe not just this past month, but since since late April, all of these articles have come out. So Paul Walter Hauser and his agent absolutely making moves in the industry. The question remains, though, who will Paul Walter Hauser be playing? Absolutely a tremendous question. One that will likely be unknown for months on end. I hope that they don't tell us until the movie comes out, to be honest. I hope we don't find out anything until the movie comes out. But as with the John Malkovich predictions, I'm going to first start with what I think is most likely and move on to what I think is most ridiculous. but what I think is most fun and what I would personally like. So what I have seen on the internet as the most likely fan casting for Paul Walter Hauser, none other than the Fantastic Four's resident robot, Herby. That's right, Herby, which stands for, let me go back to the article here, highly engineered robot built for interdimensional exploration. That's right. So this is an AI robot that assists the Fantastic Four. A recurring character shows up in multiple storylines. Herby himself was actually seen on the promotional material. I believe that same image that shows Ben Grimm's The Thing holding the Time magazine cover with Richard Nixon. I believe he's off it, floating around in the left-hand corner, lower left corner. I don't know why that was so important to me that I really thought it would need to be said. So there's obviously, there's that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. From what I hear, like I said, that's the most popular, the most common belief as to who Paul Walter Hauser will be playing. Paul Walter, notably, obviously a comedian, set to play Chris Farley and star in or maybe co-star, I don't know if he is the actual star, but play a major role in the Naked Gun reboot. Obviously, he is a comedian, so presumably we can have a fun little AI robot companion. I think it would be interesting. I think having Paul Walter Hauser play Herby works really well in conjunction with John Malkovich's Nathaniel Richards. The character... Or actually, no, excuse me. Absolutely not. I confused myself completely. For a second, so Herby originally was created to help search for Galactus. I had confused Galactus and Kang in my head, and so that's how I was going to make the connection. So I will admit wrongdoing and fault there. That was a misspeak. I don't know. I don't have any other particular reason. I don't necessarily know why this is the most likely casting. I think it's probably most likely just for the fact that he is a comedian, and so it's presumed that he will play, it makes sense that the robot companion would be the comedic relief. And also the fact that we've already seen Herby. This is one, like I said, I don't know anything about Paul Walter Hauser as an actor, as a person, so I don't have any particular... It's not like I want to see him in a major role or anything like that. It's not like I want to see him play a villain because I like the actor. So I'm pretty lukewarm as far as the Herby casting. But this other potential one, I'm definitely not lukewarm on. This is one that I've mentioned on the podcast before. It is absolutely one that I would like to see in the MCU at some time. Recurring listeners of the show will likely already know who I'm going to say here, but it is the first villain that the Fantastic Four ever faced in their comic history. One of the most iconic Fantastic Four villains, none other than the Mole Man. Yes, I think this would be an incredibly fun thing to see on the screen. I've already made the case 1,000,001 times as to why I want to see Mole Man on screen, so I'm not going to make it here. But this is, casting that I think obviously makes sense insofar as, it is another preposterous role. It's a preposterous concept that I think a comedian such as Paul Walter Hauser could really have a lot of fun with. I think there's different ways to do it. You could accentuate the comedian aspect, go super over the top with it, make that be the comedic relief, have it be super fun, and let him go hog wild with it. Or, based off of his role in the 2023 Blackbird, right, where he plays a serial killer, you could go off and you could make Mole Man an incredibly dark character, right? I mean, you could capitalize on the fact that this is a character, this is a person who was shunned from society because he is a little I mean, he's not even necessarily deformed. He's just a little homely, right? He's a little short and stout and not traditionally attractive. And because of that, and the fact that he has a little bit of a personality that is perhaps wanting, he's shunned from society, and so he seeks refuge in this underground subterranean world, and uses the Molanoids, I believe they're called, to exact his revenge on the surface world. I think you can make it a really actually interesting character with a lot of depth, and it would be a really interesting performance. I think if Mole Man does make his appearance in the Fantastic Four film, it will likely be in the more comedic, over-the-top style, simply because, similar to if John Malkovich plays a villain, I believe if Mole Man makes an appearance, we will see him in presumably just the beginning of the film, right? I imagine the film is going to open a la The Incredibles, right, in the middle of a fight between the Fantastic Four and the Mole Men, and the Molanoids, and then, Shalabal, Julia Garner's Silver Surfer, is going to appear and herald the coming of Galactus, right? That's what I think is most likely. That's what I think would be the most fun. That's what I personally would like to see. And then I would really like to see, what's his name? Paul Walter Hauser recur and come back as the Mole Man and more MCU proper stuff. I think that would be incredibly fun. Like I said, I have certainly campaigned for this villain to make an appearance. I mean, he is iconic as far as the Fantastic Four comics go. Like I said, he was the first ever villain they faced. In Fantastic Four #1, they fight Mole Man. And so I think this is the perfect choice as like a little Easter egg to be the catalyst for the show, to get past the origin story. You can do a lot of exposition in an opening conflict between the Fantastic Four and the Mole Man. You can effectively and very effectively set the tone of the entire world, of the entire film, right? I mean, if you establish that this is a sort of comedic over-the-top Mole Man, or if you establish that it's a more dark, down-to-earth, grounded Mole Man, I think that can really set the tone for the film. It would be truly interesting. I really would like to see Paul Walter Hauser take the Mole Man and do a performance that sort of is similar to Paul. Is it Paul? Paul Dano's the Riddler in Matt Reeves' Batman. I think that would be absolutely incredible. And look, like I said, I mean, if you want him to be the comedic relief, then you can have him be the opening inciting incident in this film and have him be the comedic relief there. And then once we come over to the MCU proper, have a variant of him in Earth 616, which is the dark, down-to-earth, grounded Mole Man, right? So you can explore both sides while still having this actor who is presumably incredibly talented. You can have him play this character that is really going to explore the depth of this one actor, right? I mean, that would actually be really interesting, because then you have the MCU, you have Marvel being the showcase for this actor. I think that could be really, really cool. Because I think if you can make Marvel, if you can make the MCU a place where you have definitive performances like that, right? Where you can have a universe where you can have an actor who is already received some of the laurels and just have them be the best that they can be. I think that would be absolutely fascinating. So like I said, Mole Man, that's my personal pick. Let me know down below. I think Herby's going to be the most likely choice, if we're being honest here. But let me know down below, who do you think John Malkovich is going to play? Who do you think Paul Walter Hauser is going to play? Are you excited for Ralph Ineson? What do you think? This film is absolutely shaping up to be amazing, though. I was definitely a little bit critical when it was first announced. Or critical maybe isn't the proper word. I was skeptical when the film was first announced. But over the course of the year and a half or so since the announcement was made, my fears have been progressively more and more allayed. I'm starting to get more and more excited for this film. It is going to be in theaters. Let's see. Actually, I don't want to lie. I almost said the day for Superman because they are in the same month. July 2025, or July 25th, 2025. Go see it in theaters and stick around for our review, which we will absolutely be doing, likely on a stream. We're going to call it there. We're going to end it there. Like I said, make sure that you like and subscribe for more content. Comment down below. I'm Brennan for the New Wave Nerds, and we will be back here again tomorrow with another news segment, and we'll see you guys there.